Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of Off the Sprue. In this video I'll be showing you the basics of cleaning and maintaining your airbrush. Yes, cleaning your airbrush. This is either something that you love or something that you hate. Personally, I like cleaning things and keeping things neat and tidy, so I don't mind cleaning my airbrush. A good quality airbrush is probably one of the most expensive tools that you'll have on the bench, so it just makes sense to take good care of this instrument. And in this video I'll be showing you the very basics of looking after your airbrush. Guys, now if you've been following my videos, you probably know by this time that I use two airbrushes. The Water Eclipse that I use is perfect for detail work, and this is really a workhorse that I use a lot. I also use this Supernova Studio Ninja airbrush, and that's a perfect airbrush for area coverage, primers, etc. There's two schools of thought on airbrush cleaning. One says that you shouldn't take apart your airbrush, and the other says that you should. Now personally, I can't see how you can, for instance, clear a clogged nozzle if you don't take your airbrush apart. So one of the things I would recommend is that you really familiarize yourself with how exactly your airbrush works and all the parts. The most important part of the airbrush is the needle, and this is something you need to be really careful with, especially the tip. Don't drop it and don't bend it. What happens if you do have an accident and you do damage the needle? Well, fortunately nowadays there are products like Sharpen Air on the market, and this will allow you to fix that faulty airbrush needle. I make sure to keep a set of spares for both airbrushes. Specifically Iwata is sometimes difficult to find in my country, and for this reason I keep things like nozzles and O-rings in the spares box just in case I need them for repair. There are many different cleaners on the market, and I'm not going to plug a specific one in this video. Rather, I'm going to show you the cleaners that I use. Guys, and as always, what I'm showing you here is definitely not the method. This is merely my method. For water-based acrylics such as those of Vallejo, AK, and Ammo Meg, I use these cleaners. One is from Vallejo, of course, and the other one from Medea. I believe this is a Iwata product. Comes in a nice big bottle. And for really stubborn cleanup jobs, I'll use a Tamiya airbrush cleaner. So that's it for water-based paints. For lacquer paints such as AK Real Colors and Mr. Color, as well as the metallic paints from Alclad, I will use lacquer thinners. And the most popular brands there are the ones from Mr. Hobby, and of course the Real Colors High Compatibility Thinner. Tamiya acrylics are popular as well, and in this case I'll be using airbrush cleaner from Tamiya when I use these paints. And then enamel paints. When I started out in the hobby many years ago, I used these little tins of Humbrol enamel. Of course there are also those from Model Master, and these paints you will clean up with enamel thinner. Let's talk about tools. I highly recommend this set of brushes, cleaning brushes, and they come in different sizes, and a very useful tool indeed. In small spaces where you can't fit a brush, this set of cleaning rods can be very helpful, so I keep a set of those as well. This is a very useful tool. This is meant to clear the nozzle on the airbrush, and really this is an essential tool if you want to clean your airbrush properly. And then finally you'll also need the original tools, the wrenches that came with your airbrush to take it apart. You'll also need some paper towel. This is something that I buy in bulk, and you'll also need something to keep the different parts in, and a little paint tray is perfect for that. Now this airbrush holder of mine is something you've probably seen before. It's something that I modified myself. There's space for the airbrush needle so I don't drop it or lose it, and there's also a little tray for loose parts. Sometimes I remove the front ring on my water, and that little tray there is perfect for that purpose. Guys, now as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it is essential that you know how your airbrush works and that you also know the various parts and how to take it apart. Now to get to the nozzle on my Iwata Eclipse, I need to remove the front ring first. This is unscrewed, and there you can see that is the nozzle. That's a part that you need to be very careful with. This goes into the paint tray. And then the needle. Always push the needle to the front of the airbrush. Never remove it from the back, because if you do that, you'll be pulling all that wet paint into your airbrush. So always try and remove it from the front. Now, having said that, I often remove the needle from the back myself. I know it's wrong, but it's something that I do. And in cases such as that, you'll need to be able to remove the rear barrel assembly, and you'll have to know how to clear dried paint from inside of this. Now you can see there's the assembly. There's a little spring. Please don't lose the spring. And this barrel is something that you also need to be able to clean. Now once the trigger is removed, we're only left with the airbrush body. And there you can see there's the space where the trigger fits inside. We can look all the way to the front. The trigger mechanism is housed in this part of the airbrush, and this is something I don't normally take apart unless there's something broken inside. Like most mechanical tools, an airbrush will need some lubrication. I use this Iwata lube. Now this usually comes in a tube. My tube sprung a leak, and that's why it's in a bottle. And I also use this can of silicone spray. Now this line of Q lubricants is very popular in South Africa, and I find this is an ideal product to use on my airbrush. The little nozzle is perfect to fit inside the airbrush, and a perfectly lubricated airbrush trigger should be easy to push. It shouldn't feel spongy or get stuck, and make sure that it's properly lubricated. So guys, that's the airbrush. You might be using a different one, so just familiarize yourself with the workings of your airbrush. Now, due to limited space, I don't have a spray booth. That would be the preferred option. I use this old cutting pad that I just cover in art paper. And really, you can use any other paper. I buy this in bulk. Do the necessary airbrush work and then just discard the paper. So this actually works very well for me. Now let's look at a few possible cleaning scenarios. The first one is the sticky needle. You pick up your airbrush and find that the trigger mechanism is horrible. The needle seems to be stuck, and when you look at the needle closely, you'll see that there's some dried paint on there. Someone didn't clean this properly. Now that paint has been there for a while, so I'm going to need a strong clean. In this case, I'm going to need a Tamiya airbrush cleaner. This has a very strong odor, guys. I suspect this is acetone of some kind, so do make sure that your work area is properly ventilated. Take a little bit of the Tamiya cleaner and put it in my paint tray that I'm going to use for cleaning my airbrush. Now even the most stubborn dried up paint easily comes off the airbrush needle with Tamiya cleaner. It's very likely that there's some paint stuck inside the airbrush as well, so I make a point of properly cleaning out the nozzle as well as the barrel assembly. And once this is done, the needle no longer sticks, and I can reassemble my airbrush. This is good to go again. Scenario number 2, dried paint on the needle. Guys, you're happily cruising along doing some airbrush work, and suddenly you find that your airbrush starts to sputter, and this is the cause. You can see there's some dried paint on the needle. What do? And because in this case I've been working with a water-based acrylic, I'm going to use Vallejo airbrush cleaner, just a little bit of this, and if I take a cotton bud and some of that airbrush cleaner, it's very easy to just remove that acrylic paint from the tip of that airbrush. And there you can see we're good to go again. So keep that in mind where during long airbrushing sessions, just frequently make sure that you clear any dried paint from the tip of the needle. Scenario number 3, rinsing out between color changes. Now guys, I usually just do this for water-based acrylics. You can just rinse out your airbrush in a container with some water. I find that in most cases, if the paint is still wet, this is the way to go. You can slightly wiggle the needle inside just to get rid of most of the paint on there. And again, this is for water-based acrylics. Wipe everything down. That needle's clean enough to go back into the airbrush. You can see there's some dried up paint inside the airbrush cup. This can be removed with either water or airbrush cleaner. Now, having rinsed out the airbrush, I also add some airbrush cleaner and just spray this through the airbrush just to make sure that it's perfectly clean and that I'm ready to add the next color. Most of the time this is sufficient to clean the airbrush during the day, and this is the bulk of my cleaning. And then finally, the worst case scenario. Just look at this airbrush. Some monkey used this and didn't clean it at all. I see at least two colors of acrylic paint in there. If we look at the front, the nozzle is completely blocked. And if I press the trigger action is terrible. So the chances are good that there's some dried paint inside the barrel assembly at the rear as well. And you can see that the needle is difficult to remove. It gets stuck. Now, clearly this airbrush is in dire need of a thorough cleaning, and the first thing to do is to start disassembling it. And you can even see the nozzle is stuck inside. That's the amount of dried paint inside this airbrush. Let's remove the rear barrel assembly. That screws out. Make sure that you don't lose any parts, guys. Everything needs to go into that paint tray. All the springs, all the components. Remove the trigger, and we have the airbrush body. So next, we need some paper towel and also a tub of lukewarm water. And again, guys, this applies to water-based acrylics. First, I'm going to try and see how much of this dry paint I can flush out with just ordinary water. You can see there's some paint coming out. Next, some paper towel. Let me see if I can clean that cup up. Yeah, it's a little bit coming out there. I'll need some airbrush cleaner at this point. I'm going to use this cleaner from Vallejo because I'm dealing with water-based acrylic paint. Let's first try and get this stuck nozzle out of the airbrush. There we go. That can go and soak in that airbrush cleaner for a while. Cotton bud is now used to clean the dried paint from the front of that front assembly. Fortunately, you can see the dried paint does come out. Now let's try and clean up this cup properly. I'm going to take some airbrush cleaner again and a cotton bud and start rubbing out the inside of that cup, trying to get all that dried paint out of there. You can see gradually we're making some progress. Again, some paper towel. It looks a lot cleaner than it was before. Also the front. Next, I'm going to take my my cleaning brushes and some airbrush cleaner and start brushing out the front of that airbrush, getting rid of all that dried paint. Judging by the amount of gunk in that paint tray, there's quite a lot of dried paint inside this. We'll need some more airbrush cleaner because this airbrush is very filthy. I'm now going to start and clean out the rear of the airbrush, taking a cotton bud and cleaning out as much of that paint as I can. One of the larger brushes is suitable for the inside of the airbrush body. Now the nozzle, a little piece of towel is used to just clean out the inside. You can see how much paint is actually stuck in there. Fortunately, the nozzle opening is starting to clear a little bit. The nozzle cleaning tool is essential for this part of the operation. Just try and clear as much of that dried up paint as you can. Keep on working the inside of that nozzle. I now turn my attention to the rear barrel assembly, and again one of the smaller brushes will remove any dried up paint from inside of this. You can see all the gunk coming out of there. Look at the amount of paint on that paper. Some more airbrush cleaner, and this should be good to go again. I can now start assembling my airbrush, first checking that all the O-rings are still in place, all the washers. The nozzle is in place, fits perfectly. Screw the front end on. The front protective ring. There we go. I now have to lubricate the trigger mechanism again, spraying a little bit of silicone-based lubricant in there, and also make a point of cleaning out the excess with a cotton bud so as not to get any lubricant inside my paint by accident. The trigger fits inside. You can feel the trigger action is a lot better now. And the rear barrel assembly goes inside. I can get some lubrication on that thread as well before I screw it in place. And finally the needle can go back inside the airbrush, and I can feel the trigger action is a lot better. Final step, as always, is just spray a little bit of airbrush cleaner through this airbrush, backwashing it if you wish, and just make sure that there's nothing left inside there that could contaminate my paint during my next airbrush session. And that's it, guys. The airbrush is clean again and good to go. At this point I can also remove the paper from this cutting board, and this can go into the trash, ready for recycling. When you've worked with a lot of harsh chemicals and cleaners, do also remember to clean your own hands. Guys, and that's it. That is the airbrush cleaned and ready to go. This is also it for video 67. Thank you for following along. I hope I provided some basic pointers to any of the novice modelers out there. If you're an experienced guy, probably you know this stuff already. But thank you for following along, and hoping to see one in the next video. Thank you for watching.